At a rural police station, Deputy Kyle Riker shoved Maya Ellis to the ground without a second thought, all because she was a black woman behind the wheel of a nice car. What didn't he know? Maya wasn't just passing through, she was the FBI's Midwest Regional Chief. And that one violent kick? It was about to start a firestorm. Will Maya lose everything for standing her ground? Will the truth cost her more than her career? Hit like, smash, subscribe, and stay tuned. Because what happens next will leave you speechless. Maya Ellis didn't run at first. She stood. After Deputy Riker kicked her to the ground and drove off, she picked herself up, her knee scraped, her hands trembling, her ID still lying in the dust. And though she was hurting, she wasn't broken. She made 2 calls, one to her operations chief, one to an old contact in intelligence. That's when the wheels began to turn. But Maya didn't know that, as fast as she was trying to act, others were moving faster to stop her. Not long after the video of the incident started spreading online, a quiet warning came through an encrypted FBI line. Back off. But Maya had never been good at walking away. Not when the stakes were this high. She changed locations, switched motels, kept moving. But the pressure didn't stop. That night, someone lit her SUV on fire. Gasoline-soaked rag, glass bottle, Molotov cocktail, just like that. Flames were licking up the windshield like a warning written in smoke. Maya stood in her room, watching her vehicle burn from behind a curtain, fists clenched, breath caught in her throat. That fire wasn't about destruction. It was a message. Stay in your place. But Maya didn't believe in places built on silence. She packed her things and left before dawn, drove to a quiet rental cabin under an alias, trying to stay 2 steps ahead. But the people are trying to stop her? They weren't amateurs. They had resources. They had reached. They weren't just trying to silence her. They wanted to erase her. For every move she made, they made 2. By day 3, a message showed up taped to her cabin door. We see you. No signature. No name. Just a black marker on torn cardboard. But it was clear. They knew where she was. They wanted her scared. She didn't show fear. But deep down, she started to feel it. Still, she pressed forward. She called an old ally in federal prosecution, sent them the early evidence. Riker's pattern of violence, the cover-ups, the body cam footage. She was building a case, a real one. But something was wrong. Too quiet. Too still. Then came the knock. 2 men, civilian clothes, polite smiles. But Maya could feel it. Wrong energy. Just here to talk, one said. She didn't open the door. She hit record. She messaged Marcus, her closest ally inside the bureau. 2 unknowns, outside. And 5 minutes later, they were gone. Just like that. No names. No cards. Just a silent threat in human form. The next morning, her laptop wouldn't boot. Files deleted. Drives wiped. Surveillance, maybe malware. Maybe a backdoor planted by someone inside. Her heart pounded as she realized she hadn't just stumbled into a bad cop situation. She had crashed into a hidden network, possibly statewide, possibly even higher, and now she was the target. She tried to send a report directly to the FBI's Office of Internal Oversight. The site wouldn't load. Her badge still hadn't been reinstated, and that meant she had no protection. She was alone. Maya relocated again, deeper into the hills this time. One cabin led to another. She used burner phones and encrypted drives, but the threats kept finding her. One night, someone cut her power. Another time, she heard footsteps circling her cabin at 3 a.m. Nothing ever came of it, but the silence was louder than any confrontation. She didn't sleep. She barely ate. Her hands shook when she typed. But she kept working. One file at a time. Names, patterns, contracts tied to Sheriff Calkins, former cases dismissed without cause. Every discovery made her feel closer to something big. But the closer she got, the more it felt like the walls were closing in. The final blow came not from outside, but inside. A notice, FBI suspension confirmed. No hearing, no explanation. Just silence. She stared at the screen, her hands frozen. They didn't just want her quiet. They wanted her gone. Maya sat alone in that dark room, knees pulled to her chest, head resting against the wall. Her legs still ached. Her muscles are sore. Her heart was heavier than ever. She had tried to fight smart, tried to follow the rules, tried to survive. But every time she pushed back, the system pushed harder. And now she was losing. She couldn't call her friends. They were being watched. Couldn't trust her contacts. They were turning cold. Couldn't go public again, not without hard proof. Her files had been erased. Her recordings were corrupted. Her allies scattered. And now even her badge was gone. She sat like that for hours, maybe more. The weight of it all pressing down. She was strong. Yes. Brilliant, trained, unshakable. But she was also human. And at that moment she felt like she was slipping under. That maybe this was it. That perhaps the system was too deep, too protected, too powerful. That maybe one woman, even a woman like her, couldn't change it. But just as that thought tried to settle, her burner phone lit up. One ping, one message, from the same teenager who filmed the original video. They tried to scare me too, but I sent the footage. I'm not backing down. And just like that, something sparked again inside Maya. The fight wasn't over. It had just shifted. But in that moment, on that night, she had tried to escape. She had fought. She had planned. And she had still failed. Not because she was weak, but because the enemy wasn't just a man with a badge. It was a system built on silence, fear, and shadows. And that system had just shown her its teeth. Now the question is, will Maya rise again? Will she expose them all? Or has the machine finally swallowed her whole? If you want to know what Maya Ellis does next, hit that like, subscribe, and turn on the bell. Because this fight isn't over, and the next chapter might just shake the whole country. Maya Ellis woke up that morning in the same clothes she'd passed out in. Her body hurt in too many places to count. Her knee still swollen, her shin dark with bruising, and her fingers raw from typing, digging, and clenching. She pulled herself upright, each joint protesting, and looked out the window. Across the road, a black sedan idled. Same one she'd seen twice before. No plates, windows tinted. A reminder, we're still watching. Every time she pulled up a file, the system glitched. Every drive was corrupted. Every call was met with a voicemail. They weren't just tracking her. They were cutting her off at the root. Maya had always been strong, and worse, she was running out of ways to fight back. That afternoon, while trying to access a backup file from a secure cloud, she got a warning. Unauthorized device. Lockdown initiated. Everything froze. Even her backup was gone now. She stared at the screen, heart racing, sweat rising across her neck. Every safety net had been torched. That night, she didn't sleep. And maybe that's the moment we understand her best. Not when she's standing tall in front of a press conference or setting traps for corrupt deputies. But here, broken and still refusing to quit. That's Maya Ellis. No badge, no backup, no protection. Just her, her pain, and a quiet fire that refuses to die. If you want to see what Maya does next, how she finds her voice again and flips the script, hit that like, subscribe, and don't miss what comes next. her story isn't over. It's just about to turn. Maya Ellis didn't leave that cabin the next day, not because she was hiding, but because something in her had shifted. She'd been pushed to her limit, bruised, betrayed, suspended, and nearly erased. But all that pain, all that loss, had become something else now, something sharper, more focused. She stared at her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror, her face hollowed by exhaustion, her eyes ringed with sleepless nights. But the fire in them, it was alive. Maya wasn't just surviving anymore. She was preparing. The quiet wasn't safety. It was the deep breath before the storm. She lit a single candle, placing it beside the printout of the leaked memo that proved Riker should have been suspended months ago. Then she whispered, "This ends now." She powered up her last working device, a burner phone, cheap and glitchy, but it had one purpose: to record. She filmed a message, raw, honest, just her face, battered and swollen, but unbroken. "If this message reaches you," she said, voice trembling but firm, "know that I've been hunted, silenced, framed, but I'm still here. And I'm not stopping. They burned my car. They raided my room. They slashed my name. But they couldn't take the truth from me." Her voice cracked for a second, just enough to show she was still human, still hurting. "I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this for every woman who got shoved down and told to stay there. For every name erased from a report. For every kid who looked like me and didn't get back up." That video, just 48 seconds long, she sent to Marcus and to the same journalist who'd released the first leak. She didn't ask for protection. She didn't beg for help. She asked for one thing: witnesses. "If I fall," she said in the final frame, "make sure the world knows why." Then she looked directly into the camera, eyes gleaming. "But I don't plan on falling." As she sent the file, her hands were shaking, but not from fear, from clarity, from the weight of the moment. And right then, the silence shattered. Tires screeched down the gravel road outside. Flashlights bounced across the trees. Voices, low, angry, not local. Maya grabbed her files, shoved them into a bag, and clipped her badge to her belt again, not for protection, but as a reminder. She opened the back door and disappeared into the woods. No shoes, no flashlight, just pain and purpose. She ran for nearly a mile through thick branches and broken paths. Blood smeared her arms. Her knee buckled. But she didn't stop. Because this wasn't just a chase, it was the beginning of her counterattack. And if you're reading this now, if you've followed her story this far, press that like button. Let Maya Ellis know the world hasn't forgotten her. Subscribe to stand with her, because she's out there, somewhere in the dark, carrying all our hope on bruised shoulders. And she needs us, now more than ever. For 3 days, no one heard from Maya Ellis. The phone went silent. No pings, no signals. Law enforcement assumed she'd gone into hiding. Her enemies whispered she'd given up. But they were all wrong. Maya hadn't disappeared. She had gone underground, deep into the belly of the beast. Somewhere between the whispering pines of southern Missouri and the Arkansas border, she met with a hacker known only as Larkspur, a legend in back channels and encrypted forums. No one knew who connected them. Some said Maya once saved her from a trafficking ring years ago. Others claimed Larkspur owed her a favor from a ghost file buried inside a CIA vault. Whatever the truth, Maya walked into that barn at midnight with nothing but a bruised leg, a broken phone, and a name she had traced through layers of corruption. And she left with a thumb drive that could bring a whole county to its knees. But it wasn't just digital breadcrumbs she carried. Rumors began to swirl that Maya had managed to sneak into a government compound dressed as a food delivery worker just to copy surveillance footage that proved Riker had coordinated other illegal stops with 2 off-the-books deputies. Another story claimed she disguised herself as a cleaning staff member and slipped into a sheriff's office gala, recording conversations with a hidden mic in her necklace. No one could prove it, but the timing of the leaks matched up too perfectly for it to be a coincidence. People online began calling her the ghost in the system. The name stuck. Meanwhile, authorities were scrambling. Every day, new pieces of evidence surfaced: contracts, payoffs, sealed court documents suddenly unsealed. But the most shocking came from a coded drop, a full audio confession from one of Sheriff Calkins's most loyal deputies, describing in detail how she was ordered to intimidate Maya. The voice shook, the truth cut like a knife. And at the end of the recording, a pause, then a whisper. She told me to speak, and I couldn't stay quiet anymore. Maya's legend grew. TikTokers made animations. Reddit threads tracked her movements like myth. News anchors called her the whistle that roared. But the woman behind the storm was still out there, chasing a truth few dared to face. She hadn't come this far to stop now. She was laying the final trap, building her endgame. And no one, not Riker, not Calkins, not the men pulling strings in the dark, had a clue what was coming next. If you've followed her journey, if your heart raced when she stood alone, if you believe in fighting even when you're tired, even when it hurts, leave a comment. Tell Maya Ellis she's not alone. Let her know the world sees her. And don't forget to subscribe, because what's coming next isn't just justice. It's something they never expected. Something only Maya could pull off. The world didn't understand the weight Maya Ellis had been carrying until the whole truth came out. Not the headlines, not the viral clips. The real story, the one that started with a kick at a gas station and unraveled into a web of corruption so thick it nearly choked her. From the moment Deputy Riker shoved her into that SUV and drove his boot into her shin, he wasn't just attacking a woman. He was attacking every memory Maya had of being told she didn't belong. Every time someone looked at her skin, it was before her credentials. Every time she was questioned more than her white colleagues, even when she wore the same badge. That kick wasn't new. It was history repeating itself. But Maya didn't stay down. She stood up in silence, bleeding, trembling, but planning. And from that parking lot to the burning of her SUV, to the terrifying moment she ran barefoot into the forest while armed men circled her cabin, Maya chose to fight. Not loudly at first, not with a badge or a press conference, but with strategy, with grit, and with every ounce of truth she'd spent her life protecting. She hacked into systems they said were unbreakable. She uncovered sealed files buried deep inside networks. She met with people in parking garages at 2 a.m., took flash drives passed beneath coffee cups, and mapped out the entire structure of racial corruption threaded through Benton County's justice system. And the risk? It was real. Maya wasn't protected. She was suspended. Alone. Hunted. Every motel felt like a trap. Every mirror might hold a camera. She barely slept, often sitting in the dark with a bandaged leg and a pistol on the table, just in case. But she kept going. She endured slashed tires, threatening notes, power cuts, and surveillance, because she remembered who she was doing it for. Not just herself, but the countless others who never got their video recorded, who never got back up. She carried them. Then, at last, it happened. The moment the public saw what she had seen all along. The leaked footage. The internal memos. The backroom deals. The confession. It all came out. And when it did, when the people finally saw what she had fought so hard to prove, They didn't turn away. They stood with her. Deputies were indicted. Calkins was arrested. Senator Grayson was caught fleeing the state. The system cracked open, and for the first time in years, Maya breathed. Truly breathed. Not because she was safe, but because the silence was broken. Suppose you've felt the sting of ice, if your heart pounded when she ran, when she stood, when she didn't back down. Hit that like button. And subscribe to this channel, because Maya's story is not just about one woman. It's about all of us. And if Maya Ellis taught us anything, it's this. When the world tries to erase you, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is refuse to disappear. Even after the arrests were made, after Sheriff Calkins was taken from her home in handcuffs, after the very system silenced Deputy Riker he once hid behind, Maya Ellis wasn't free. The public thought the story was over, that justice had finally been served. But the truth? For Maya, the fight had only deepened. She couldn't sleep without checking every door 3 times. She couldn't walk into a cafe without noticing who sat near the window, who lingered too long. Because when you expose a system that's been rotting for years, you don't just shake the branches, you stir the wasp's nest. And Maya had stirred it well. The threats didn't stop. They changed, became more sophisticated, encrypted messages, tapped phones. A drone was spotted circling the apartment building. The FBI had lifted her suspension, sure, but they offered protection like it was a favor, not a duty. Keep your head down, they advised. But Maya Ellis never learned how to shrink herself to make others comfortable. She showed up at public hearings with her leg still wrapped in bandages, her voice shaking from fatigue, but never from fear. And when she stood at the podium, listing the names of every whistleblower who tried to speak before her and were ignored, her voice broke. Just once. Enough to remind the world that the hero they saw on their screens wasn't unbreakable. She was wounded, tired, and human, and she was still standing. But behind the strength was pain. Raw, relentless pain. Her body was healing more slowly than expected. Her right knee, damaged in the assault, needed surgery. But Maya refused to take time off. She didn't want the media to spin her recovery into retreat. She showed up to strategy meetings with ice packs taped under her slacks. She read court filings with her leg elevated and her fingers swollen from nerve pain. She hadn't visited her parents in over a year. She missed birthdays, funerals, peace, all because she chose to do the right thing in a world that punishes people who dare to. And the system wasn't done with her. Old colleagues began to distance themselves. An internal memo accidentally labeled her a security risk. A smear article suggested she'd leaked classified information for attention. None of it is true. But the damage? It was real. Sponsors withdrew from events where she was scheduled to speak. Her email was flooded with hate. And still, she kept going. Because every time she thought about quitting, she remembered that gas station. The crunch of gravel, the sting of Riker's boot, the moment she could have stayed down, but didn't. If this part of Maya's journey breaks your heart, if her pain, her sacrifice, her fire moves something inside you, press the like button. Let Maya know she's not standing alone, and subscribe to keep walking beside her because her story hasn't ended. It's just beginning, and she's still fighting. Not just for herself, but for all of us. The rain hit hard that night, slamming against the windshield of Maya Ellis's car as she sat alone, parked on a back road just outside the city. Her hands clutched the steering wheel, but she wasn't driving anywhere. Not yet. Inside her chest, a storm even louder than the one outside was raging. She had just left a closed-door hearing in Washington, where powerful men tried to twist her words, downplay her evidence, and paint her as unstable, emotional, one senator had whispered to another. Emotional? She thought. After everything? She'd bled for this. She'd been hunted, abandoned, betrayed, and now they dared to question her composure? She stared through the raindrops, heart pounding. In her passenger seat lay the latest leak, an internal memo proving that not only had Sheriff Calkins known about Riker's abuse, but she'd also received bonuses for keeping complaints off the record. Maya had fought to get that file, traveled across 2 states, met a retired clerk in a parking garage, passed a flash drive through a cracked window, risked being followed. Again. And now she held the proof. But with each victory came more weight, more danger. The pressure never eased. She thought about giving up more times than she'd ever admit. Thought about disappearing, changing her name, living a quiet life somewhere far away. But every time she came close to walking away, she remembered the voices of the mothers who messaged her, saying, "They did this to my son, too." The teenager who filmed her assault said, "You helped me believe in courage." And most of all, her own younger one, who once stood silent as a young black girl while a teacher accused her of cheating simply because her score was too high to believe. That girl grew into Maya Ellis, and Maya Ellis wasn't running, so she turned the ignition, drove straight to the FBI field office, stormed into the director's suite, dropped the memo on his desk without a word, and when he looked up, stunned, she met his eyes and said, "You have 24 hours to open a new case, or I take this to the people." Then she walked out. No fear, no apology. But make no mistake, Maya was still hurting. Her limp had worsened. Her inbox is filled daily with threats. Friends had turned quiet. And yet she carried it all with silent strength, like a mountain refusing to crumble no matter how hard the wind blows. If you feel her fire, if you see her pain, if you believe in what she's fighting for, press that like button right now. Show Maya she's not alone. Subscribe to this channel and help her story reach those who need to hear it. Because what Maya Ellis is doing is not just brave, it's history in the making. And your support? It might just be the force that keeps her going. They thought Maya Ellis had vanished after her confrontation in D.C. But what no one expected was that she was quietly pulling off the most unbelievable mission of her life. Disguised under a false identity, she flew to New Mexico using a ticket booked under a retired agent's alias, a favor repaid from years ago. Her goal? A warehouse hidden just outside Santa Fe, one that never appeared on FBI maps, but was whispered about in encrypted messages. Maya had uncovered a buried reference to it in one of Senator Grayson's private emails, codenamed The Ledger. What was in it? She didn't know. But the way they tried to scrub that file told her everything. She had to find it. Dressed as a maintenance worker, she slipped past motion sensors using a stolen badge from a contractor who owed her father his life. The corridors inside were cold, metal, clinical, lined with unmarked doors and hushed voices. Maya moved like she belonged, clipboard in hand, nerves coiled tight. She had 12 minutes, that's all. In the back corner, behind a faulty boiler panel, she found it. An evidence vault containing surveillance records, payout logs, even printed memos, some handwritten, linking Sheriff Calkins, Riker, and Grayson to a broader federal contract scandal. She photographed what she could, stuffed physical files down the leg of her uniform, and slipped back out before the shift change. But the escape? That's where it all nearly fell apart. A guard noticed her badge didn't scan properly on the exit door. His eyes narrowed. "You knew?" he asked. Maya smiled coolly. "First week," she replied. "Boiler room's a mess." He hesitated, then nodded. As soon as she stepped outside, she ran. Not visibly, but enough. She ditched the uniform, jumped into a rideshare under a burner name, and was airborne within hours. That footage? That stack of documents? It connected everything. Not just local corruption, but national misuse of power. And Maya had it. No one knew how she got it. The press speculated. Former agents shook their heads. She didn't, they said. She couldn't. But she did. And when she leaked parts of the evidence through a trusted journalist, the internet exploded. People began calling her Shadow Light, a woman who disappeared and returned with truth so sharp it cut through concrete. But Maya wasn't doing this for glory. She did it for every name buried in redacted reports, for every voice silenced before they could speak. And as she sat in a quiet hotel room days later, watching the story break across networks, she didn't smile. She cried. Quietly. Because the weight of doing the impossible doesn't always feel like victory. It often just feels real. If her courage moved you, if her story stunned you, leave a comment below. Let Maya know her fight mattered. Encourage her to keep going, and subscribe to follow the rest of this journey because Maya Ellis isn't done. Not by a long shot. And neither is the truth she's still chasing. When the whole truth of what Maya Ellis had endured finally reached the public, it didn't just shake them, it changed them. Because this wasn't just about a gas station or a viral video, it was about a woman who faced racial violence not from a stranger, but from someone in uniform, sworn to protect. It was about how Deputy Riker looked at her that day, not as a federal officer, not as a leader, but as a black woman driving a nice car in a town where she didn't belong. It was about how he shoved her, kicked her, and humiliated her in broad daylight without a flicker of hesitation. And how Maya, bleeding and in pain, stood up anyway, not because she was strong in that moment, but because she had no other choice. The world saw the moment he hurt her, but they didn't see what came after. The way she was hunted in silence, the motel fire, the constant surveillance, the lonely nights when she didn't know if the next knock on the door would be her last. The federal suspension was meant to strip her of power. The colleagues who stopped returning her calls, the camera footage that was nearly buried, the files erased, the attempts to erase her. And yet she never gave up. She ran barefoot into the woods to escape armed men. She slept on floors, showered in gas station bathrooms, and uploaded reports from burner phones in parking lots. She risked her life. Not once, but over and over again, just to keep the truth alive. And when she finally released that final evidence, when the public saw how deep the corruption went, how Sheriff Calkins, Senator Grayson, and Riker weren't just acting alone, but as part of a chain that profited off racial profiling and silencing whistleblowers, the nation stopped. People listened. Protests erupted not only in anger, but also in admiration for the woman who refused to stay down. Maya's name became a call to conscience. She didn't do it for applause. She didn't do it for fame. She did it for the 17-year-old boy who filmed her fall and whispered, "I didn't know what else to do." She did it for every woman who had ever been stopped and questioned for being in the wrong place. She did it because she had lived that silence all her life. And finally, she chose to break it. And now, the problem that nearly killed her, it's being dismantled piece by piece. Riker is facing federal charges. Calkins lost everything. Grayson is under criminal investigation. And Maya, still scarred, still healing, is standing tall again, badge clipped back to her hip. But she will never be the same. None of us will. If her story moved something inside you, if her pain, her fire, her victory inspired you, hit like, leave a comment, and subscribe to stand with Maya Ellis. Because she didn't just survive, she transformed injustice into truth. And we are the witnesses to that courage. Even after the investigations were underway and the headlines carried her name in bold letters, Maya Ellis still couldn't sleep through the night. The world may have seen her as a hero now, a symbol of resistance, a force of truth. But inside, she was still fighting. Not just the system, but the weight of everything it had done to her. The bruises had faded, yes. Her leg was healing. Her badge had been restored. But trauma doesn't wear off like that. It lingers. It echoes. One night, she stood in her apartment doorway for over 10 minutes, keys in her hand, heart racing, for no reason other than the memory of what could be waiting inside. Her mind still replayed the moment they firebombed her car. Still remembered the cold silence of being suspended when she needed protection the most. Still heard Riker's voice saying, "That's where you belong." Every word of hate. She carried it. But she didn't stop. Maya returned to work, not as a quiet agent, but as a bold, unflinching force. She led meetings that made powerful men squirm. She filed new motions to reopen buried civil rights cases. She gave speeches in places where young black girls had once been told to stay quiet and stay small. Her voice? Unapologetic now. Her steps? Heavy but certain. And every time someone said, "Thank you for what you did," Maya would nod. But inside she knew the cost. This kind of truth doesn't come cheap. And still, the retaliation hadn't ended. One morning, the door to Danielle's apartment was cracked open. Not broken, just open. Nothing stolen. Just a message. "We're still here." Another day, her car alarm went off without cause at 3:17 a.m., the same time her SUV had burned months before. These weren't coincidences. They were reminders. Psychological warfare. But Maya stared into that darkness and whispered, "You'll have to try harder than that." Because she'd already lived through the worst, she'd been kicked down, betrayed, silenced, and hunted. And she had survived. Not only that, she'd won. But she needed you, not just to clap from the sidelines, but to stand beside her, to speak when she couldn't, to carry the message forward when her voice breaks. Because this wasn't just her battle, it was ours. So if your heart ached when she stood alone, if your breath caught when she risked everything for the truth, if you believe in what Maya Ellis represents, press that like button right now, let her know she's not alone. Leave a comment to give her strength, and subscribe to follow every step forward she takes, because her mission isn't finished. It's only just begun. And in the world, Maya Ellis is fighting to rebuild. You are part of the story, too. No one knew precisely how Maya Ellis managed to get her hands on the final piece of evidence, but the rumors were almost too wild to believe. After exposing corruption in Benton County and igniting a federal investigation, most assumed she'd lie low, rest, heal. But Maya had other plans. The final name on her list, the one pulling strings from the shadows, was still out there, and she wasn't going to stop until she found him. They say Maya posed as an international journalist to infiltrate a closed-door conference in Vienna, where private security firms and former intelligence officers were rumored to trade secrets like poker chips. Wearing a sleek navy coat, her badge swapped for a forged press pass, she slipped past armed guards, shook hands with men who didn't realize she was the storm they'd tried to bury, and recorded a whisper. One whispered name that tied it all together. Vincent Hargrove. Former contractor, silent funder of police departments flagged for misconduct, and the man who, it turns out, had personally ordered Maya's suspension. What she did next was even more unbelievable. She tracked him to a private island estate in the Florida Keys, the kind of place that doesn't show up on GPS. With help from a retired Navy pilot, an old friend from a trafficking case she'd closed years ago, she flew in low, under radar, and kayaked the final stretch in the dead of night. No lights, no backup, just Maya, a waterproof bag of files, and a camera hidden in her hoodie. She waited in the brush until dawn, watching Hargrove sip coffee on his back deck like he didn't have the blood of a dozen buried investigations on his hands. And then she confronted him, not with anger, with truth. "You tried to erase me," she said, "but I don't go quietly." He laughed, arrogantly, called Danielle reckless. "You think anyone will believe you?" She didn't argue. She reached into her bag and dropped a thumb drive onto Malcolm's table, containing emails, audio, and even a wire transfer labeled Media Control Ops. His face changed. The silence said everything. That footage? She leaked it the next day. The public erupted. The phrase, "Danielle doesn't go quietly," became a rallying cry. And for the first time, the entire machine began to shudder. Not just Riker, not just Calkins, but everyone was tied to Hargrove. Maya had taken her fight from a gas station in Missouri to an island no one dared touch, and returned with truth carved out of danger. So if you've followed Maya this far, if you've gasped, cried, or sat stunned at what she's done, leave a comment right now. Tell Maya what her courage means to you. Hit that like button to show the world she's not fighting alone. And subscribe because her story isn't finished. It's just reaching its most powerful chapter yet. When the world finally caught up to the whole truth of Maya Ellis's journey, it didn't feel like a headline. It felt like a wound reopening, one that too many people had tried to pretend didn't exist. From the moment Deputy Kyle Riker shoved her at that gas station and slammed his boot into her shin, Maya was no longer just a high-ranking federal agent. In that moment, to him, she was just a black woman in the wrong place. Her badge, her years of service, her sacrifices, they didn't matter. All he saw was her skin. And all she felt was the centuries of injustice in one violent kick. But what no one saw in that moment was everything that followed. How Maya limped back to her SUV, breath shaking, pain burning through her leg, and called her team not to complain, but to act. How she didn't flash her badge until after she'd gathered the proof, because she wanted the world to see how far hate would go when it thought no one was watching. She could have stopped when her car was firebombed, when her motel was broken into, when anonymous sources within the agency turned against her. She could have chosen silence, like so many before her were forced to. But instead, she ran barefoot through the woods with a flash drive tucked into her jacket, limping from a wound that had never fully healed. Not just on her body, but in her spirit. And she ran toward the danger. She decoded files buried in encrypted vaults, confronted men twice her size and 3 times as ruthless, exposed power structures that had silenced victims for decades. She crossed oceans, posed as people she was not, flew under fake names, and returned with the evidence no one dared collect. And still, it wasn't vengeance that drove her. It was true. For the boy who filmed her, for the mothers who cried in the dark, for the cases that were quietly buried, for the names that would never go viral. And when it was over, when the final piece was exposed and the machine finally broke under the weight of its lies, Maya stood at the edge of a courthouse, eyes red but steady, her badge clipped back to her belt. Not as a symbol of power, but as a promise. This won't happen again. So if her fight, her pain, her courage, her refusal to be erased, moved you, hit that like button right now. Let Maya know the world saw what she endured. Comment to tell her she matters, that her story changed something inside you. And subscribe, because if Maya taught us anything, it's that justice doesn't wait for permission, and heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they limp out of a storm with truth in their hand, and the world finally listens. Even after Maya Ellis exposed the last piece of the puzzle, after the footage went viral, after indictments were handed down, after the system she'd fought began to collapse, her fight didn't end. In many ways, it became even lonelier. The applause faded. The headlines moved on. But the enemies she had exposed? They didn't disappear. They went underground. They regrouped. And Maya felt it. Every single day. She began to notice new faces on her street. The same black SUV was passing her building twice in one morning. Her mail arrived torn, her emails glitching at just the right moments. And one night, while walking back from a quiet dinner with Marcus, a car swerved too close, too fast, only to peel off before she could even react. It wasn't random, she knew it. They wanted her rattled, wanted her afraid. But Maya had learned something in those long nights in the forest, in the back alleys of DC, in the quiet, sobbing moments she never let the world see. Fear can live in your chest, but it doesn't get to steer. Still, the toll was real. Her leg never fully healed. Nerve damage made it hard to sleep. The pain radiated some nights so severely she had to soak it in ice water at 3 a.m., sitting in silence, watching the city lights shimmer like ghosts. And the emotional pain? That cut deeper. She missed her mother's voice, missed the comfort of routine, missed the person she used to be before she became the face of justice. Sometimes she wondered if anyone truly saw her anymore. And then came the night someone broke into her apartment. They didn't take anything. They just overturned files, scattered old photographs, tore one family picture, and left it on her bed. No message, no threat, just a violation. That night, Maya sat on the floor of her bedroom for hours, tears silently carving down her cheeks. Not from fear, from exhaustion, from the deep ache of having given everything and still being hunted for it. But even then, she got back up. She filed a report, knowing it might be ignored. She changed her locks, reinforced her security system, and got back to work. Because somewhere out there, another Maya was about to face her own Riker, her Calkins. And Maya wasn't about to leave her unarmed. She didn't fight for attention. She didn't speak for applause. She carried the truth because someone had to. And if you've come this far, if Maya's journey pulled at your heart, made you weep, made you hope, press that like button right now. Show her she's not walking alone. Leave a comment to remind her the world hasn't forgotten what she risked. And subscribe, because Maya's story is still unfolding. And together, we can carry it until every voice like hers is heard, protected, and believed. The break-in changed something in Maya Ellis, not just in her routine, but in her spirit. After everything she had uncovered after the gas station, the threats, the fires, the betrayals, she thought she was prepared for anything. But coming home to find her past scattered on the floor, photos torn, drawers emptied, files touched by hands that meant her harm, it felt like someone had tried to erase her from the inside out. And it wasn't just an invasion of space. It was an invasion of her peace, her healing, and maybe worst of all, her hope. She didn't scream. She didn't cry out. She stood still, breathing heavily in the doorway, her keys still in her hand, her eyes scanning what they'd done. A photo of her with her father, ripped down the middle. Her service medals were knocked to the floor, one cracked. Her private research files, once neatly stacked on her desk, were now soaked from a tipped-over glass of water. Her safe is open. Nothing stolen. Just violated. She dropped to her knees, picked up the torn photo, and for the first time in weeks, her hands began to tremble. She thought of the little girl she used to be, the one who was told she had to work twice as hard for half the respect, the one who never expected protection. Only proof. That same girl now lived in the body of a woman who had shattered a corrupt system and was still being hunted for daring to speak. But that night, Maya made a decision. She didn't go to a hotel. Didn't run. She sat in the middle of that chaos, cleaned it up piece by piece, and when the room was quiet again, she turned on her camera. No lights, no makeup, just Maya, raw, tired, fierce. "If you're watching this," she said, "then you already know what I've been through. They tried to silence me, tried to break me, and now they've come into my home. But let me be clear, I'm still here, I'm still fighting, and I'm not afraid." Her voice cracked, not from weakness but from truth. "I'm tired, I'm hurting, but I'm not done. Because somewhere out there, someone else is living through the same nightmare, and they need to see me not give up." She paused, swallowed the emotion rising in her throat, and looked into the lens with eyes that had seen too much. "So if you're with me, if you believe the fight is still worth it, press like. Let me know you're out there. Comment below to keep this message alive. And subscribe, because I'm not going anywhere. Not until justice stops being a dream and starts being the norm." That video reached. It was about survival. And about knowing that somewhere, someone believed in her enough to press that little button and say, "Keep going. We've got you 1 million people in 24 hours. But for Maya, it wasn't about views. It was about connection. After the break-in, most people assumed Maya Ellis would retreat into the shadows, but instead she vanished into something even more dangerous. A plan. The kind of plan only someone with nothing left to lose would dare to execute. For days, no one knew where she was. Her phone was off. Her location was scrambled. But behind that silence, Maya was orchestrating one of the boldest moves of her entire journey, something that would shake the last pillar of the system she exposed. She started by traveling under a dead alias, one she hadn't used since her undercover days, a name buried so deep in the Bureau's archives that only she remembered it. She slipped across 3 state lines, met with a former cyber forensics expert turned recluse, and bartered a deal with the only currency she had left: truth. She handed over encrypted flash drives, evidence never meant to see the light of day, and in return, she got access to a series of internal databases linking private security firms with leaked DOJ records. And what did she find? It was devastating. Buried in the metadata were files showing secret payments from a shell company to a political super PAC, the same PAC that funded Sheriff Calkin's 3rd campaign. And the name on those payment authorizations? Vincent Hargrove, the same man who had personally ordered Maya's surveillance. But she didn't stop there. In the middle of the night, Maya crossed into a gated estate in Northern Virginia, posing as an environmental inspector. The guards barely glanced at her badge, which looked real enough in the rain. She planted a listening device behind a wall panel in Hargrove's private office, one designed to activate only when his voice was detected. Then she waited. 2 days later, the device caught everything: Hargrove's panicked phone call, his plan to bribe a judge, and his attempt to scrub Maya's case from every court database. And Maya? She leaked it, but not the way anyone imagined. She sent it to a dozen university law professors, civil rights activists, and independent journalists simultaneously, ensuring it couldn't be buried or controlled. The footage went live within the hour. And suddenly, Maya wasn't just a woman seeking justice. She was the one dismantling a network of corruption with nothing but a laptop, a voice recorder, and the courage to never look away. Nobody could believe how far she'd gone. The bravery, the brilliance. The mystery is behind how she always seemed one step ahead. The internet called her the Reckoner. Quiet, ruthless, unstoppable. If her journey has shocked, moved, or inspired you, please leave a comment below. Let Maya know that you're still with her. Press that like button to show your support. And subscribe to this channel, Because Maya Ellis didn't just survive the storm, she became it. And she's not done yet, not by a long shot. There was a moment just before Maya Ellis clicked send on the final evidence leak, when she closed her eyes and thought of the gas station, of the burning heat, the stench of diesel. The way Deputy Riker looked at her was like she wasn't human, just something to push, to kick, to break. And how, when she hit the ground, gravel slicing through her jeans, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just looked up and memorized his face. That was the moment everything changed. Because before that, Maya had been quiet. Respected, sure. Decorated. But quiet. She had followed the rules, trusted the system, believed in the badge on her chest. But Riker shattered more than her leg that day. He shattered an illusion. And in the months that followed, when she was hunted, suspended, betrayed, and nearly erased, she realized this was never about one officer. It was about the machine that protected him, and she would not rest until that machine crumbled. The problem wasn't just local corruption. It was federal neglect. Hargrove, the man in the shadows, had orchestrated it all. He'd placed the call that got her pulled from duty. He funded the sheriff's silence. He monitored her through devices hidden in her badge. And when she exposed him, when she dropped the footage of him admitting he'd handle her before election season, the world finally saw what she'd been fighting. Not a bad apple. A rotted tree, fed by power, watered with silence. But even then, Maya wasn't safe. They came for her again. This time, they waited outside a remote cabin she used to hide after the break-in. 3 men, armed. One knocked. Another circled back. But Maya had learned from every mistake. She had cameras. Back exits. A decoy SUV was left in plain sight. And when they kicked in the front door, she was already halfway through the woods with a sat phone and a steel drive strapped to her chest. Cold air bit her lungs. Her knee screamed with every step. But she kept running, because what she carried wasn't just files. It was freedom. She made it to a ranger station by dawn, and from there she uploaded everything. The surveillance, the payments, the plans. Within hours, every major news outlet had it. Every social platform. And when Maya finally collapsed in the ranger's office, soaked in sweat, bleeding, she whispered only one word. Done. When the public saw the whole truth, when they realized what she'd endured, how far she went, how much she gave, they didn't just cheer. They wept. Because Maya didn't just survive. She exposed the darkness and dragged it into the light. If her fight has lit something inside you, press the like button right now. If you believe in courage, in truth, in the power of one woman standing alone, leave a comment and subscribe to this channel. Because Maya Ellis didn't run from the fire, she walked straight through it and came out carrying justice. Even after the last file was leaked, after Maya Ellis emerged from the freezing woods with blood on her hands and truth on a drive, her battle wasn't over. It only shifted forms. The spotlight grew brighter, but the shadows grew thicker. Her name was now everywhere. News crawls, opinion columns, protest signs. Some called her a hero. Others are a threat. But no matter what they called her, the truth remained. Maya was still very much alone. The DOJ had opened a formal investigation into Hargrove's network. Publicly, it looked like progress. But behind closed doors, Maya was met with delay after delay. Documents were under review. Agents who once worked beside her refused to return her calls. She showed up to a federal debriefing only to find that half the committee had rescheduled. And when she filed a request for protection, after the break-in, the attempted ambush, the surveillance, It was denied. Denied. She had exposed an entire chain of corruption. She had risked her life. She had brought undeniable proof to their doorstep, and they denied her protection. She went home that night to silence. No team, no backup. Just the buzz of a hallway light and the quiet throb in her knee, which never fully healed after Riker's assault. She sat on her couch, still wearing the jacket she ran through the forest in, and stared at the ceiling for a long time. The weight on her chest felt unbearable, not just from fear, but from something more profound. A grief she hadn't had time to feel. A grief for every piece of herself this battle had stolen. Her friendships had changed. Her family couldn't sleep unless she checked in twice a day. And inside, she felt herself drifting further from the person she used to be. The quiet agent who believed the system could be corrected from within. Now she saw it clearly. The system knew what it was doing, and it was punishing her for telling the world. But even in that pain, Maya didn't stop. She sent encrypted updates to independent legal networks. She organized files into public archives. She gave anonymous interviews to survivors of racial profiling and wrongful arrests. And she did it all while limping, aching, grieving. Behind the strength the world admired lay a woman breaking quietly each day and choosing to rebuild herself anyway. So if you've ever felt like giving up, if Maya's story reminds you of the pain of being ignored, silenced, or punished for standing up, press like to show her she's not alone. Leave a comment to tell her what her strength means to you, and subscribe to follow this story, because Maya Ellis isn't just one voice. She's every voice that refused to stay silent even when the silence was easier. And if you're still listening, then you already know, her journey is far from over. It was late, past midnight, when Maya Ellis heard the knock. 3 soft taps. No voices, no footsteps retreating, just the cold press of silence against her apartment door. Her heart seized. She didn't breathe. She reached for the side drawer where she kept her emergency kit. Phone, flashlight, USB drives with duplicates of everything she'd uncovered. Her hands were trembling, but her mind was clear. She'd trained for danger. She hadn't trained for the betrayal that came dressed in silence. Earlier that day, Maya had received a disturbing message from an anonymous source inside the DOJ. They're erasing files, not redacting. Erasing. Your name is disappearing from key witness logs. And now, someone was standing on the other side of her door, reminding her that they weren't just trying to silence her. They were trying to erase her. She didn't open the door. She waited. She listened. And after 10 minutes, she heard the elevator come to life. Someone was leaving. Or maybe just stepping back into the shadows. She wasn't sure. All she knew was this. She couldn't stay there anymore, not even one more night. So she packed. Not with panic, but with purpose. Hard drives, files, scanned photos of evidence, a burner phone preloaded with emergency contacts, her father's old dog tags, the cracked service medal from the break-in. She paused when she saw a sticky note on her fridge. Breathe. You made it this far. She had written it after the cabin ambush. She didn't realize how badly she needed to reread it until that moment. By 2:30 a.m., she was gone. Disappeared. Again. This time, she found refuge in a safe house offered by a former civil rights attorney who had been following her case from the beginning. A small cottage near the woods, barely on the map. No Wi-Fi. No signal. But safety for now. And in that stillness, Maya sat on the floor, knees pulled to her chest, and cried for the first time in weeks. Not from weakness, but because bravery without rest is a quiet kind of grief. And she had carried too much for too long without breaking. She thought of that gas station, the kick, the dirt, the blood, and how it led to this. A woman who had done everything right, who had told the truth. And now she lived like a fugitive because justice had a cost that no one had warned her about. But even in that moment, broken, scared, and exiled, Maya opened her laptop and began to write a message to the people who still believed. "I don't know how long this road is," she typed, "but I'm still on it. If you see me, if you hear this, don't stop watching. Don't let them erase me." If her story still moves you, if her courage still stirs something deep inside, press the like button right now. Leave a comment to remind Maya she's not invisible, and subscribe to this channel, because she may be in hiding, but her voice still echoes. And with your help, it will never be silenced. Maya Ellis didn't return with fanfare. She didn't walk into courtrooms to applause or take stages with camera crews waiting. She came back the way she had always moved, quietly, intentionally, and full of purpose. When the final arrest was made, when Hargrove was taken into custody on charges of conspiracy, obstruction, and targeted retaliation, Maya was already 2 steps ahead, submitting her final case files to the independent federal oversight board she helped create. Her name, once whispered in fear by those in power, was now etched into the foundations of new reform policies spreading through the justice system like wildfire. But more importantly, she came back whole. Not because the scars had faded. They hadn't. Not because the world had suddenly become just. It hadn't. But because Danielle knew, deep in her soul, that she didn't break. They tried. With violence, with erasure, with fear. But Maya stood, and in doing so, she gave others the strength to do the same. You see, Maya's story isn't just about a broken system. It's about a woman who refused to let that system define her worth. It's about how courage doesn't always look loud. It sometimes looks like tears falling in a dark room while you press send on the truth. It seems like limping forward, one painful step at a time, even when no one is clapping. It looks like standing up again after you've been kicked down. And this story? It's a reminder to you, to all of us, that silence never protects the innocent. That sometimes telling the truth will cost you. But what is the cost of not speaking it? That's even greater. So here's what Maya's journey teaches us. If you see something wrong, speak. If the road is dangerous, walk it anyway. If your voice shakes, use it louder. And when the system tells you to sit down, stand taller. Because justice isn't something we wait for. It's something we demand. People like Maya build it, and people like you protect it. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button now. Let Maya know her fight meant something. Let others know this matters. Leave a comment below. Tell us how this story moved you. Tell Maya she's not alone. And if you believe in stories like this, stories that reveal truth, honor resilience, and inspire action, subscribe to this channel. We have more stories coming, more voices that need to be heard, more heroes who didn't wear capes but carried the weight of the world anyway. Maya Ellis was never just one woman fighting alone. She became a movement, a mirror, a message, and her echo will carry as long as people like you keep listening.